Take Face Off and mash it with Freaky Friday, and then you get the mixed up dark comedic thriller, It's What's Inside. You can feel the ick coming on in this Netflix film, but is it a good ick? A group of friends gather for a pre-wedding party that descends into an existential nightmare when an estranged friend arrives with a mysterious game that awakens long-hidden secrets, desires, and grudges. Alright, so just to be clear, this is a highly convoluted and mishmashed story that could have you feeling a lot like the Charlie Day meme. I mean, the premise is that this group of old friends, they come together for a wedding, and when one of them shows up with a device that can allow minds to be switched, meaning that the consciousness of one ends up in the body of another, the group makes this sort of a messed up game of Guess Who? This is one of the most creative films I've seen in a really long time. Another I just reviewed is Things Will Be Different. Now, both movies can make you feel like you tossed your brain in a blender and then hit puree. And this movie does it not only because of the concept, but the visual execution as well. Each of the actors not only have to play the characters they are at the start of the film, but they then also have to convincingly portray the personalities and mannerisms of other characters. Now, I mentioned Face Off, and there you've got Nick Cage and John Travolta doing the exact same thing, but they only have to be each other. In this movie, there's a bunch of players, so the pool for possibilities is much higher. Now, I'm impressed at how effectively the actors embody the other players. It becomes very discombobulating as we watch the face of one actor executing movements and expressions of another character. And I found myself playing the game along with the characters thanks to how convincing they were in playing someone else in the cast. Now, because of the initial drama that's unveiled in the first portion of the story, we know that things have the potential to go off the rails and devolve into pandemonium. And that anticipation is part of the stressful fun of watching this. Before events unfold, we can guess at what some of the actions will lead to. But because of the complexities that are inherent thanks to the storyline, a lot of your guesses may end up being completely wrong. The discomfort that comes from watching conversations and interactions play out is satisfying, but in a warped way. I shouldn't enjoy being weirded out the way that I was. But once the ride started, I was fully into it, and I was loving the semi-dirty feeling I got from watching all of these relationships deconstruct and then form back. Now, from a visual perspective, this is wonderfully presented. As the story kicks itself into overdrive and barrels towards anarchy, we're treated to insights into what's occurring underneath, regardless of what an outward appearance might suggest. And don't think that this makes it any less confusing or enjoyable. I was having a blast as the whole story just felt like it was exploding. I mean, my brain was trying to keep up with all the information that was being force-fed to me through a cannon. My senses were barraged with details, just visually, audibly, even intellectually. It was almost overload, and I loved trying to keep up. Now, the pacing, it is incredibly quick, matching the urgent elements and pressured situations of the story. And when things are chill, the pace is chill. Not without tension, but it's a relaxed tension. But then, when all hell breaks loose, you can feel the rush, and it's awesome. From a character perspective, it's a tough call on who to actually like or root for. Each of the people that we meet are flawed, but many of them are also unlikable too. I mean, one character is self-obsessed, which leads to a feeling of self-importance and arrogance that causes them to look down on all of their friends. Another is intensely jealous of someone, becoming emotionally confused and unsure of themselves because they feel that they don't measure up. Now, there's a wavering and unconfident character who does their best to come across as caring and involved, but in reality is gaslighting themselves and others because they can't bring themselves to acknowledge the truth of their emotions. Now, I could go character by character, but the larger point is that each of them have reasons why we would feel disdain towards them. I don't think any of them are unredeemable necessarily, but many of them do make it a bit difficult to get on their side. And thanks to all these flaws, story arcs are built to maximize doubt and distrust, leading to scheming or simply dishonest interactions. And I love how the film asks the question on what we would do if everyone thought we were someone else. There's so many avenues that this can go down, but the narrative chooses, wisely I think, to narrow the options and then keep the possibilities more limited to relationships and emotions. Now, as I was watching, being fully engaged and loving the creativity that went into making this, I was ready to give it a 5 out of 5. But then we get to the end, and that's when the movie kind of gives up and cops out, choosing to create some cheap resolutions rather than maintaining the smarts that made the majority so enjoyable. One element I did like because I couldn't have guessed it, but there are a few items that are just wildly rushed or simply ignored. The film leans on simplicity and a commonplace conclusion, cheating us as viewers out of the ending that we deserve. The story uses a fade to black situation to absolve itself from showing some of the final events, coming back just a bit later with a ton of exposition to wrap up the plot. Now, this can be an effective storytelling device, but when the large amount of exposition is combined with a very rushed final segment, the effectiveness is diminished and it works against all that came before. Now, even though the end is rushed and it includes a huge exposition dump as explanation, it doesn't fully ruin the excitement and brain-melting creativity of all that went before. This is a smart and unique thriller, using flawed characters to exploit the past sins and hurt feelings of others while also introducing the complexity of mind-swapping with intricate reveals and insane interactions. The tension is palpable with anxious energy and dread oozing out of every conversation, leading to a twisted and explosive conclusion most won't ever see coming. If you've been bemoaning the lack of novelty in storytelling, make sure you put It's What's Inside at the top of your list. There's sex, maybe some brief nudity, a ton of profanity, and then some violence. I give It's What's Inside 4.5 out of 5 couches. I do wish the ending wouldn't have been rushed, but outside of this was a mind-effing great time. So what's a twisty movie that you love to watch? I'd love to hear your recommendations in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.